Elliot Carter had always been good at making decisions. As the CEO of Bloom Corp, one of the largest floral companies in the country, he was used to sitting in boardrooms, analyzing reports and signing off on big projects. But today, Elliot wasn't. In his office. He was standing behind the counter of a small flower shop, pretending to be someone else entirely. His name tag read Eli, and no one, not even Rachel Monroe, the manager of this particular branch, knew who he really was. The idea had come to him during a meeting about employee satisfaction. One of the executives mentioned that some workers felt overworked and underappreciated. At first, Elliot dismissed it as typical corporate grumbling. After all, every company dealt with complaints like these. But then he started thinking. What? If there was truth to it? What if people were truly unhappy working for Bloom Corp? The thought gnawed at him until he decided to investigate himself. So here he was, dressed in jeans and a simple blue shirt, blending in as much as possible among the staff. It wasn't easy for Elliot to step away from his usual life. Normally, he wore tailored suits and spent his days surrounded by assistants and advisors. Now he found himself carrying heavy boxes of flowers, sweeping floors, and learning how to tie bouquets. It was humbling, but also kind of exciting. For once, he didn't have to worry about quarterly earnings or shareholder meetings. All he had to do was fit in. The shop itself was charming in its own way. Large windows let sunlight pour in, illuminating rows of vibrant flowers arranged neatly on wooden shelves. There were roses, lilies, daisies, and dozens of other varieties, each more beautiful than the last. Customers wandered around, browsing and chatting with employees. Most of the staff seemed friendly enough, eager to help customers find exactly what they needed. But not everyone was so cheerful. Rachel Monroe was the manager of the shop, and she ruled it with an iron fist. She was a tall woman in her mid-40s with curly red hair pulled back into a tight bun. Her sharp green eyes missed nothing, and her voice carried across the room whenever she spoke. To say she was strict would be an understatement. Every task had to be done perfectly according to her standards, and woe to anyone who made a mistake. From the moment Elliot arrived, Rachel kept a close eye on him. "You must be Eli," she said when he introduced himself on his first day. Her tone was clipped, almost dismissive. "Don't expect any special treatment just because you're new. We run a tight ship here." Elliot nodded politely, doing his best to appear calm and unassuming. "I understand," he replied. "I'm ready to learn." For the next few hours, Rachel gave him a crash course in flower shop basics. She showed him how to water plants, arrange bouquets, and handle customer orders. While she explained things clearly, her manner was cold and distant. Elliot noticed that the other employees avoided eye contact with her whenever possible. They moved quickly, trying to stay out of her way. Despite Rachel's harsh demeanor, most of the staff seemed nice enough. There was Kevin, a laid-back guy, in his early 30s who joked around and helped Elliot get the hang of things. Then there was Sophie, a soft-spoken woman in her 50s who loved talking about gardening tips. And finally, there was Mia Thompson, a shy teenager with long blonde hair and a nervous smile. Mia worked part-time after school, saving up money for college. She was quiet and kept to herself, but Elliot could tell she cared deeply about her job. On his second day, Elliot began noticing patterns in Rachel's behavior. She was tough on everyone, but Mia bore the brunt of her criticism. Whether it was taking too long to ring up a sale or accidentally knocking over a vase, anything Mia did wrong earned her a scolding. Rachel's words were often harsh, cutting, right through the otherwise peaceful atmosphere of the shop. One morning, Elliot overheard Rachel yelling at Mia near the storage area. "How many times do I have to tell you to double-check your work?" Rachel snapped, gesturing angrily at a box of damaged carnations. "Do you think we can afford to waste inventory like this?" Mia mumbled an apology, her face turning red. "I'm sorry, Rachel. It won't happen again." "It better not," Rachel shot back before storming off. Elliot watched the exchange silently, feeling a mix of frustration and sympathy. He wanted to say something, to defend Mia, but he couldn't risk blowing his cover. Instead, he waited until later that afternoon when the two of them were alone organizing bouquets in the back room. "Hey, are you okay?" Elliot asked softly, glancing over at Mia. She looked startled, as if she hadn't expected anyone to notice her distress. "I'm fine," she replied quickly, forcing a weak smile. But Elliot wasn't convinced. "You know, Rachel's bark is worse than her bite," he said, hoping to reassure her. "She's tough on everyone, not just you." Mia hesitated before nodding. "Yeah, I guess." She paused, then added in a quieter voice, "But sometimes it feels like she hates me." Elliot frowned. "That's not true. You're doing great. Don't let her get inside your head." Mia didn't respond, but Elliot could see a flicker of gratitude in her eyes. From that moment on, he made a mental note to keep an eye on Rachel. Something about her management style didn't sit right with him. Maybe it was just her personality, or maybe it was something deeper. Either way, Elliot was determined to find out. As the days went by, Elliot settled into his role as Eli. He learned the ins and outs of running a flower shop, from arranging bouquets to dealing with difficult customers. He even managed to make a few friends among the staff, though he remained cautious about revealing too much about himself. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about this place. The tension between Rachel and her employees was palpable, and Mia continued to bear the brunt of her anger. One evening, as Elliot locked up the shop after closing time, he caught a glimpse of himself in the reflection of the glass door. For a moment, he barely recognized the person staring back at him. Gone was the polished executive in a suit. Instead, he saw a man covered in dirt and sweat, wearing a name tag that wasn't his own. It was strange, but also strangely freeing. For the first time in years, Elliot felt like he was truly seeing the world from someone else's perspective. Little did he know, his journey was only beginning. It was a busy afternoon at the flower shop, the kind where customers flowed in and out like waves crashing against the shore. Orders piled up, phones rang constantly, and the air buzzed with activity. Elliot had been tasked with helping Mia organize a fresh delivery of roses that had just arrived. They worked together quietly in the storage area, sorting stems into buckets filled with water. Despite Rachel's earlier scolding, Mia seemed determined to prove herself. She moved quickly, her hands steady as she trimmed leaves and arranged petals. Elliot admired her resilience. Most people would have crumbled under the weight of Rachel's criticism, but Mia kept going. She didn't complain or lash out. Instead, she focused on her work, doing everything she could to avoid another confrontation. Still, Elliot noticed how tense she looked whenever Rachel entered the room. It was clear that fear lingered beneath her calm exterior. As they finished organizing the roses, Elliot carried one of the heavy buckets toward the display area. That's when it happened. A customer rushed past him, accidentally bumping into Mia. Startled, Mia stumbled backward, knocking over the tray of freshly cut roses she'd been arranging moments before. The sound of clattering vases echoed through the shop, followed by an awkward silence. Mia froze, staring at the mess on the floor. Her face turned pale, then red with embarrassment. I'm so sorry," she stammered, bending down to pick up the broken pieces. But before she could gather more than a few shards, Rachel appeared. "What is going on here?" Rachel demanded, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Her green eyes narrowed as she took in the scene. Shattered vases, spilled water, and scattered roses. "Mia, what did you do?" "I didn't mean to," Mia began, her voice trembling. "Didn't mean to?" Rachel interrupted, stepping closer. "Do you think I pay you to break things? Do you think we can afford this kind of carelessness?" Elliot watched from across the room, his stomach tightening. He wanted to step in, to defend Mia, but he knew he couldn't reveal his true identity, not yet. Instead, he stood frozen, gripping the bucket in his hand so tightly his knuckles turned white. Rachel continued her tirade, her voice growing louder with each passing second. "You're useless, Mia, completely useless. If I wanted incompetence, I'd hire a robot." Customers turned to look, their expressions ranging from sympathy to discomfort. Some even stopped browsing altogether, clearly uncomfortable witnessing such a public humiliation. Mia tried to respond, but her words caught in her throat. Tears welled up in her eyes as she struggled to clean up the mess. Elliot noticed how her hands shook as she picked up the broken glass. He wanted to tell Rachel to stop, to remind her that mistakes happen to everyone. But he stayed silent, reminding himself that exposing his cover now would only make things worse. Finally, Rachel let out an exasperated sigh. "That's it. You're cleaning all of this up yourself, and I'm docking your pay for the damaged inventory." With that, she spun around and marched back to the counter, leaving Mia alone with the wreckage. For a moment, no one moved. The shop felt eerily quiet, save for the faint rustling of flowers swaying in the breeze from the open door. Then Kevin, the laid-back employee who had befriended Elliot early on, stepped forward. "Hey, Mia," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "Let me help you with that." Mia shook her head, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "No, it's okay. I've got it." Kevin hesitated but eventually backed off, sensing that Mia needed space. Elliot waited until Rachel disappeared into the back office before approaching her. Crouching down, he offered a gentle smile. "Here, let me grab some paper towels," he said, reaching for a roll on a nearby shelf. Mia glanced at him, her eyes still glistening with unshed tears. "Thanks, Eli," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Together, they cleaned up the mess, working in silence. Elliot didn't say much. He didn't need to. His presence alone seemed to comfort Mia, giving her the strength to push through the moment. Once the floor was spotless again, Mia straightened up, exhaling deeply. "I'm sorry about that," she murmured, avoiding his gaze. "You don't have to apologize," Elliot replied firmly. "It was an accident. Accidents happen." Mia nodded, though she still looked troubled. "Rachel hates me," she admitted quietly. "She always has." Elliot frowned. "That's not true. She's tough on everyone." Mia shook her head. "No, it's different with me. She never yells at Kevin or Sophie like that, just me." Elliot didn't know what to say. He wanted to reassure her, to tell her that Rachel's behavior wasn't personal. But deep down, he wasn't sure if that was true. Over the past few days, he'd seen firsthand how unfairly Rachel treated Mia compared to the other employees. It wasn't just tough love. It was something darker, something rooted in cruelty. Later that evening, after closing time, Elliot found himself replaying the incident in his mind. He sat on a bench outside the shop, staring at the stars while trying to process everything he'd witnessed. The image of Mia crying on the floor haunted him, fueling a growing sense of anger. How could anyone treat someone like that? Especially someone as hardworking and kind as Mia. His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps. Looking up, he saw Mia walking toward him, clutching her backpack. She hesitated for a moment before sitting down beside him. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey," Elliot replied, offering a small smile. "How are you holding up?" Mia shrugged. "Okay, I guess. I hate feeling like I'm failing all the time, you know?" "You're not failing," Elliot said quickly. "You're doing great. Don't let Rachel make you think otherwise." Mia sighed, staring at the ground. "It's hard not to take it personally. Sometimes I wonder if I should quit." The words hit Elliot like a punch to the gut. Quitting wasn't an option for Mia, not if she wanted to save money for college. He leaned forward, his tone serious. "Don't quit, not because of her." "But what else can I do?" Mia asked, her voice tinged with frustration. "Every day feels like walking on eggshells. One wrong move, and she blows up at me." Elliot thought for a moment, weighing his options. He couldn't reveal his true identity, not yet, but he could offer support in other ways. "Just keep going," he said finally. "And if anything happens, I'll be here, okay?" Mia looked at him, surprise flickering in her eyes. "Really? Really?" Elliot replied with a nod. "You're stronger than you think, Mia. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." For the first time that day, Mia smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile. "Thanks, Eli. That means a lot." As they parted ways, Elliot felt a renewed sense of purpose. He hadn't come to this flower shop just to observe operations. He'd come to understand the people who made Bloom Corp run, and now, more than ever, he realized how important it was to protect them, from managers like Rachel, from unfair policies, and from the toxic culture that had taken root in places like this shop. Little did Elliot know, his journey was far from over. But as he walked home that night, he knew one thing for certain. Something had to change, and he was going to be the one to make it happen. Elliot couldn't stop thinking about Mia. Her words from the night before echoed in his mind. "Sometimes I wonder if I should quit." The thought of her leaving because of Rachel's cruelty made him angry. Not just at Rachel, but at himself. He had built Bloom Corp into a successful company, yet somehow he hadn't noticed the cracks forming beneath the surface. People like Mia were suffering, and it was his responsibility to fix it. The next morning, Elliot arrived at the shop earlier than usual. He wanted time to think, to figure out how he could help without blowing his cover. As he unlocked the door and stepped inside, he noticed Mia already there, sweeping the floor. She looked tired, her movements slower than usual. When she saw him, she gave a small wave, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Morning," Elliot said, grabbing an apron from the hook by the door. "You're here early." "Yeah," Mia replied, pausing mid-sweep. "I figured I'd get a head start so I don't mess anything up later." Her tone was casual, but Elliot caught the underlying sadness. He walked over, leaning against the counter. "Listen, Mia, about yesterday, I meant what I said. You're doing great, okay? Don't let Rachel get to you." Mia hesitated, then nodded. "Thanks, Eli. It's just hard sometimes, you know. I feel like no matter what I do, it's never enough." Elliot frowned. He wished he could tell her the truth, that he was the CEO of Bloom Corp and had the power to change everything. But he knew he couldn't. Not yet. Instead, he decided to focus on gathering evidence. If he could prove that Rachel's behavior was part of a larger pattern, he might be able to take action without revealing his identity too soon. Over the next few days, Elliot became more observant. He paid close attention to how Rachel interacted with her employees, noting every harsh comment, every unfair demand. He also started talking to the other staff members, subtly asking questions about their experiences. Kevin, the easygoing guy, who often joked around, surprised Elliot with his honesty. "Rachel's always been tough," Kevin admitted one afternoon while they restocked shelves together. "But lately it's gotten worse. She picks on Mia more than anyone else. Honestly, I don't know why Mia sticks around." Elliot nodded, pretending to agree. "Do you think it's just her personality or is something else going on?" Kevin shrugged. "Hard to say, maybe she's under pressure from corporate or something. Either way, it's not cool." Elliot filed the information away, realizing that Kevin's guess about corporate pressure might hold some truth. Perhaps Rachel felt the need to push her team harder because of unrealistic expectations from above. If that was the case, then the problem wasn't just limited to this shop. It was systemic. Sophie, the soft-spoken woman who loved gardening, shared similar sentiments when Elliot approached her during a quiet moment. "Rachel means well, I think," Sophie said, arranging a bouquet of daisies. "But she doesn't know how to manage people properly. She yells instead of teaching, and that only makes things worse." Elliot listened carefully, grateful for Sophie's insight. "Has anyone ever reported her behavior?" he asked cautiously. Sophie shook her head. "No one wants to risk losing their job. Besides, who would believe us? Rachel's been here forever. She runs this place like it's her own." The conversation left Elliot feeling conflicted. On one hand, he admired the loyalty and resilience of his employees. On the other hand, he realized how much fear and mistrust existed within the workplace. People were afraid to speak up, even when they were being treated unfairly. It was a sobering realization, one that motivated him to dig deeper. To gather concrete evidence, Elliot began using his phone discreetly. Whenever Rachel lashed out at someone, He recorded snippets of her tirades, making sure to keep the device hidden in his pocket. At first, it felt wrong, like he was spying on his own employees. But the more he witnessed, the more convinced he became that it was necessary. These recordings weren't just for his benefit. They were for Mia, for Kevin, for Sophie, and for everyone else who deserved better. One particularly tense moment occurred when Rachel accused Mia of stealing tips left by customers. It happened during a busy lunch rush, with several customers browsing the aisles. Rachel stormed over to the cash register, her face red with anger. "Where's the money, Mia?" she demanded, slamming a clipboard onto the counter. "Don't lie to me, I know you took it." Mia's eyes widened in shock. "I didn't take anything, I swear." "Oh, please," Rachel sneered. "Who else would it be? You're the only one working the register today." "I'm telling the truth," Mia insisted, tears brimming in her eyes. "Check the security footage if you don't believe me." Rachel rolled her eyes. "Fine. But if I find out you're lying, you're fired." The accusation hung heavy in the air, casting a shadow over the rest of the day. Elliot watched as Mia struggled to compose herself, her hands shaking as she rang up purchases. Though, the security footage eventually cleared her name. The damage had already been done. Rachel's false accusation had shaken Mia's confidence, leaving her visibly upset. That evening, after closing time, Elliot found Mia sitting alone on the bench outside the shop. She stared at the ground, hugging her knees to her chest. Elliot joined her, sitting quietly until she spoke. "I can't keep doing this," Mia said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Every day feels like a test I'm doomed to fail." Elliot sighed, wishing he could offer more than words of encouragement. "You're stronger than you think, Mia, and you're not alone. I'll help you however I can." Mia glanced at him, her expression softening slightly. "Why are you being so nice to me, Eli? Most people wouldn't care." Elliot hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Because I've been where you are. Well, not exactly, but I know what it's like to feel powerless, and I want to make sure you don't have to feel that way anymore." Though his explanation was vague, Mia seemed to accept it. She offered, a faint smile, gratitude flickering in her eyes. "Thanks, Eli. I don't know what I'd do without you." As they parted ways, Elliot felt a renewed sense of determination. He couldn't stand by and watch Mia or anyone else be treated this way. Something had to change, and he was going to make sure it did. Little did he know, his efforts were about to lead to a confrontation that would shake the entire shop to its core. Elliot knew he was running out of time. The longer he stayed undercover, the more likely it was that Rachel would grow suspicious of him. She had already started asking questions about his presence in the shop. "Why did they send you here?" She'd asked one afternoon while they were arranging bouquets. Her tone wasn't friendly, it was probing, almost accusatory. Elliot had shrugged it off, saying something vague about needing extra experience before applying for a management position. But Rachel's sharp eyes told him she wasn't convinced. Despite the pressure, Elliot continued gathering evidence of Rachel's abusive behavior. Every evening after closing, he reviewed the recordings on his phone, making sure they were clear and usable. Listening to them made his blood boil. There was Rachel yelling at Mia for taking too long with a customer order, berating Kevin for forgetting to water a plant, and mocking Sophie for suggesting a new way to organize inventory. Each clip painted a picture of a toxic workplace culture, one that needed to be dismantled. But collecting evidence wasn't enough. Elliot also began talking to other employees, subtly encouraging them to share their thoughts about Rachel. He wanted to understand whether her behavior was an isolated issue or part of a larger problem within Bloom Corp. Most of the staff were hesitant to open up at first, fearing retaliation if word got back to Rachel. However, once they realized Elliot genuinely cared, some began sharing their frustrations. Kevin, who usually kept things lighthearted, admitted during a quiet moment in the storage room, "I've worked here for 5 years, and I've never seen anyone treated like Mia. It's like Rachel has a personal vendetta against her." Elliot nodded, pretending to agree. "Do you think it's just Rachel being tough, or is there something else going on?" Kevin scratched the back of his neck, thinking. "Honestly, I think Rachel's scared. Scared of messing up, scared of losing her job, so she takes it out on us. Elliot filed the comment away, realizing that Kevin might be onto something. Maybe Rachel felt trapped by the demands placed on her by corporate leadership. If that was true, then fixing the problem wouldn't just involve firing Rachel. It would require addressing the root causes of her behavior. Sophie, on the other hand, offered a different perspective. Rachel's been here forever, she said quietly one evening while they tidied up the shop. She knows this place better than anyone, but she doesn't know how to lead. She thinks yelling will make people work harder, but all it does is make them hate coming to work. Elliot listened intently, grateful for Sophie's honesty. Has anyone ever tried reporting her behavior? He asked cautiously. Sophie shook her head. No one wants to risk it. Besides, even if we did, who would listen? Corporate doesn't care about little shops like this. Her words struck a chord with Elliot. For years, he had prided himself on building Bloom Corp into a successful company. Yet now, sitting among stacks of flower pots and gardening tools, he realized how disconnected he'd become from the people who made his business thrive. His employees weren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They were real people, with real struggles. And right now, many of them felt invisible. Determined to change that, Elliot decided to take a bolder step. He began documenting not only Rachel's behavior, but also the broader issues affecting the shop. He noted how understaffed they were, how outdated some of the equipment was, and how morale seemed to plummet whenever Rachel raised her voice. These details would help him build a case for reform, not just at this location but across all Bloom Corp branches. Rachel, however, wasn't oblivious to Elliot's actions. One afternoon, while he was reviewing his notes in the back room, he noticed her lingering in the doorway. Her arms were crossed and her green eyes narrowed as she studied him. "What are you doing back here?" she demanded, stepping inside. Elliot quickly minimized the app on his phone, feigning nonchalance. "Just checking tomorrow's schedule," he replied, forcing a smile. "Didn't want to miss anything important." Rachel didn't look convinced. "You're always sneaking around, writing things down, or staring at your phone. What's going on?" "Nothing," Elliot said smoothly. "Just trying to learn as much as I can." Rachel snorted. "Well, don't get too comfortable. You may act like you belong here, but you're still just a temp." Her words stung, though Elliot didn't let it show. Instead, he nodded politely and returned to his task, careful not to give her any reason to suspect what he was really up to. But as soon as Rachel left the room, he exhaled deeply, feeling the weight of her scrutiny settle over him. He knew he couldn't keep avoiding her questions forever. Eventually, he'd have to confront her. And when that moment came, he wanted to be ready. That evening after closing time, Elliot sat alone in the shop, replaying the recordings on his phone. Hearing Rachel's voice again filled him with anger, but also resolve. He thought about Mia, whose confidence had been shattered by weeks of relentless criticism. He thought about Kevin and Sophie, who deserved a manager who inspired instead of intimidated. And most importantly, he thought about the kind of leader he wanted to be. Not someone who hid behind reports and meetings, but someone who stood up for his employees no matter the cost. By the time he left the shop that night, Elliot had made up his mind. The next day, he would gather everyone together and reveal the truth, not just about Rachel, but about himself. It was a risky move, one that could jeopardize his mission entirely. But staying silent wasn't an option anymore. For Mia, for the team, and for himself, it was time to step forward and make things right. As he walked home under the stars, Elliot felt both nervous and hopeful. Tomorrow would be the turning point, the day when everything changed. The next morning, Elliot arrived at the flower shop earlier than usual. He had spent most of the night rehearsing what he would say to the team. It wasn't going to be easy. Revealing his true identity meant risking their trust, especially since they thought he was just another temporary employee. But he knew it was the right thing to do. For too long, Rachel's behavior had gone unchecked, and Mia deserved justice. As the staff trickled in, Elliot called everyone into the main area of the shop. Kevin, Sophie, Mia, and a few others gathered near the counter, curious about why he'd asked them to stop working. Rachel stood off to the side, arms crossed, her sharp green eyes narrowing suspiciously. "What's this about?" she demanded, her tone clipped. Elliot took a deep breath, steadying himself. "I need to talk to all of you," he began, his voice firm but calm. "There's something I haven't told you, and it's time I did." The room fell silent. Everyone turned their attention to him, some looking confused, others intrigued. Rachel shifted uncomfortably, though she didn't interrupt. "My name isn't Eli," Elliot continued, pausing for effect. "It's Elliot Carter. I'm the CEO of Bloom Corp." For a moment, no one spoke. Then whispers broke out among the employees. Kevin raised an eyebrow, while Sophie covered her mouth in surprise. Mia's eyes widened, her face pale with shock. Even Rachel seemed momentarily speechless, though her expression quickly hardened into a scowl. "You've got to be kidding me," Rachel said finally, stepping forward. "You expect us to believe that?" Elliot reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet, showing them his corporate ID. The logo of Bloom Corp stared back at them, unmistakable and official. "I came here undercover because I wanted to see how things were really run in our stores," he explained. "I needed to understand what life is like for employees like you." Rachel let out a bitter laugh. "So what? You're spying on us. Now? Is that supposed to make us feel better?" "It's not about spying," Elliot replied evenly. "It's about accountability. Over the past few weeks, I've seen firsthand how you treat your team, Rachel, and it's unacceptable." Rachel's face flushed red with anger. "How dare you accuse me? Do you have any idea how hard I work to keep this place running smoothly?" "Yes, I do," Elliot said, his tone unwavering. "But working hard doesn't give you the right to bully people, to humiliate them, to make them feel worthless." With that, Elliot pulled out his phone and pressed play on one of the recordings he'd gathered. Rachel's voice filled the room, loud and cutting. "You're useless, Mia, completely useless." The air grew heavy as the recording played. Mia flinched, tears welling up in her eyes, but she didn't look away. Kevin clenched his fists and Sophie shook her head sadly. When the clip ended, Elliot lowered the phone and looked directly at Rachel. "This isn't leadership," he said, firmly. "This is abuse. And it stops today." Rachel opened her mouth to argue, but Elliot cut her off. "I've heard enough excuses. You've targeted Mia repeatedly, accused her of things she didn't do, and made her doubt herself every single day. That ends now." Mia stepped forward, her voice trembling but steady. "She's right. Rachel has been awful to me, and to everyone else." Other employees nodded in agreement. Kevin added, "It's not just Mia. We've all dealt with her. Yelling and insults. No one deserves to be treated like that." Rachel looked around the room, searching for support, but found none. Her shoulders slumped slightly, though she still tried to defend herself. "Fine, maybe I've been tough. But running a business isn't easy. Someone has to keep you all in line." "That's not your job," Elliot said sharply. "Your job is to lead, not to tear people down. Leadership means inspiring your team, supporting them, and helping them grow, not breaking their spirits." Rachel's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. She knew she was outnumbered, her authority crumbling before her eyes. Elliot turned his attention back to the rest of the team. "I want to apologize to all of you. This kind of behavior shouldn't happen under my watch. It's clear that we need to make changes, not just here, but across all Bloom Corp locations." He glanced at Mia, who was wiping away tears. "Mia, I'm sorry for everything you've gone through. You're an incredible worker and you deserve respect. Starting today, I'm promoting you to assistant manager. You'll help oversee operations here and ensure that everyone feels valued and supported." Mia's eyes lit up with disbelief. "Are you serious?" "Completely," Elliot replied with a warm smile. "You've earned it." The room erupted into applause, with Kevin and Sophie cheering enthusiastically. Even some of the quieter employees joined in, smiling for the first time in days. Elliot felt a wave of relief wash over him. For the first time in weeks, the atmosphere in the shop felt lighter, freer. As for Rachel, she stormed out of the room without another word, slamming the door behind her. Elliot watched her go, feeling a mix of sadness and resolve. He hadn't come here to destroy anyone's career, but he couldn't ignore the harm she'd caused either. Corporate headquarters would handle her termination process, ensuring it was fair and professional. Once the initial excitement died down, Elliot addressed the team again. "This is just the beginning," he said. "I'm committed to making Bloom Corp a better place, for everyone. If there's anything else you need, anything else you want to share, please let me know. Your voices matter." The employees nodded, many of them smiling for the first time in ages. Kevin clapped Elliot on the shoulder. "Thanks, boss, this means a lot." Sophie chimed in, her voice soft but sincere. "We've needed this for so long. Thank you for listening." Elliot smiled, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "Thank you for speaking up. Together, we can build something better." Later that afternoon, as the shop returned to its usual rhythm, Elliot stood by the window watching customers browse the vibrant displays. The weight of responsibility still rested heavily on his shoulders, but for the first time in years he felt truly connected to the heart of his company, the people who made it thrive. Little did he know, his journey was far from over. There were still countless stories waiting to be uncovered, lessons waiting to be learned, and lives waiting to be changed. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Change had begun, and it started right here, in this small flower shop. In the weeks following Elliot's revelation, the flower shop transformed. The once tense atmosphere gave way to laughter, collaboration, and a renewed sense of purpose. Mia, now promoted to assistant manager, blossomed in her new role. She moved confidently through the shop, helping customers, training new hires, and ensuring everyone felt supported. Her smile returned, brighter than ever, and it was clear she had found her footing again. Elliot stayed at the shop longer than he'd initially planned, wanting to ensure the transition went smoothly. He worked closely with Mia, teaching her the ins and outs of management while encouraging her to trust her instincts. "You've got this," he told her one afternoon as they reviewed inventory together. "Don't second-guess yourself." Mia grinned, her confidence growing with each passing day. "Thanks, Elliot, I couldn't have done it without you." Word of Rachel's termination spread quickly among Bloom Corp branches, sparking conversations about workplace culture across the company. Corporate headquarters launched an investigation into employee experiences, sending representatives to gather feedback and identify areas for improvement. Elliot made sure Mia and the rest of the team were included in these discussions, emphasizing the importance of their voices being heard. One evening, after closing time, Elliot sat down with Kevin, Sophie, and a few other employees to talk about what changes they'd like to see implemented. "We're rebuilding Bloom Corp from the ground up," he explained, leaning forward earnestly. "Your input matters more than anything." Kevin spoke up first, scratching his head thoughtfully. "I think we need better communication between corporate and the stores. Sometimes it feels like decisions are made without thinking about how they affect us." Sophie nodded in agreement. "And more support for managers. Rachel didn't know how to lead because no one taught her. Maybe some training programs would help." Elliot jotted down their suggestions, grateful for their honesty. "Great points. Anything else?" Mia hesitated before speaking. "What about mental health? A lot of us feel stressed or overwhelmed but don't know where to turn. Having resources like counseling or even just someone to talk to would make a big difference." Elliot smiled softly, touched by her vulnerability. "That's a fantastic idea. Let's make it happen." As the meeting wrapped up, Elliot felt a deep sense of gratitude. These employees weren't just workers, they were thinkers, dreamers, and problem solvers. By listening to them, he realized he could create a company culture that truly valued people over profits. Back at corporate headquarters, Elliot wasted no time implementing changes. He introduced leadership training programs for managers, designed to teach empathy, communication, and conflict resolution. Anonymous reporting channels were established, allowing employees to voice concerns safely without fear of retaliation. Mental health resources became a priority, with free counseling services offered to all staff members. To ensure accountability, Elliot also created a task force dedicated to monitoring workplace culture. Comprised of employees from various levels, within the company, the team conducted regular check-ins at different locations, gathering feedback and addressing issues before they escalated. It was a bold step, but Elliot knew transparency was key to earning back trust. Meanwhile, life at the flower shop continued to improve. With Mia leading alongside temporary oversight from corporate, the team thrived. They celebrated milestones together, birthday parties for coworkers, holiday decorations covering every surface, and even a small ceremony when Mia officially took over as full-time manager. Customers noticed the change too, commenting on how friendly and efficient the staff had become. One sunny afternoon, as Elliot prepared to leave the shop for good, he paused by the window to watch the scene unfold. Mia was assisting a customer, her hands moving deftly as she arranged a bouquet of sunflowers. Kevin joked with Sophie while stocking shelves, and another employee hummed a tune as she watered plants. The shop buzzed with life, its vibrancy mirroring the colorful blooms surrounding them. Mia approached him, holding a small potted plant wrapped in decorative paper. "Here," she said, smiling shyly. "It's a thank you gift for everything." Elliot accepted it, touched by the gesture. "Thank you, Mia. You've shown me what real strength looks like. I'm proud of you." "I couldn't have done it without your support," she replied, her eyes shining. "Really, Elliot, thank you for believing in me." He placed a hand on her shoulder, his expression warm. "Keep going. You're going to do amazing things." As Elliot walked out of the shop for the last time, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment. This undercover mission had started as a way to observe operations, but it had turned into so much more. He'd learned invaluable lessons about leadership, empathy, and the power of listening. Most importantly, he'd rediscovered the heart of Bloom Corp, the people who poured their passion into every petal, stem, and leaf. In the months that followed, Elliot visited other Bloom Corp locations, continuing his efforts to connect with employees and address systemic issues. Each stop reinforced his belief that kindness and accountability were essential to running a successful business, and though he eventually returned to his office in tailored suits, he carried the lessons of the flower shop with him wherever he went. For Mia, the journey was just beginning. Under her leadership, the shop flourished, becoming one of the top-performing locations in the company. Customers loved her warmth and dedication, and her team admired her compassion and fairness. She often thought about Elliot's words, "You're stronger than you think." They reminded her to keep pushing forward, even when challenges arose. The story of the undercover CEO and the bullied teen employee spread throughout Bloom Corp, inspiring others to speak up and demand change. What had started as a single moment of courage, Elliot stepping forward to confront Rachel, had sparked a movement toward kindness, respect, and accountability. And so, in the quiet moments between arranging bouquets and greeting customers, Mia would glance at the potted plant Elliot had left behind. It stood proudly on the counter, thriving under her care, a symbol of growth, resilience, and hope.